Okay, we are holding Mishna. We're holding in the Shulchan Aruch with Mishna Berura, Mechaber 313, subsection 5.
So what do we have to work the Shulchan Aruch?
Well, yeah.
So okay. So Siman
313.5, page 155 in that.
Oh, you have this volume, Mamish. I didn't realize you have this.
Yeah. I have the whole set of Shabbos.
So it's Baruch Hashem. So did I. Okay. Don't push space. Okay. Push space. Should I read the introduction?
Yeah, I find those are very helpful actually.
So the previous two passages discussed installation of removable doors of a structure that is attached to the ground. The coming passage will address the permissibility of reinstalling doors of a kli. Shulchan Aruch has already taught back in Shin Ches, in subsection 9, that doors that were completely removed from a kli may not be reinstalled on Shabbos. As Mishna Berura mentioned there, in note 37, wedging, i.e. firmly attaching the door to the kli, is a biblical violation of the malacha of makir patish, finishing, and according to some Rishonim, is a violation of the malacha of boina, building. Shulchan Aruch added that rabbinic law forbids reinstalling the door even without wedging it in, due to concern that one might wedge it in. Our passage focuses on the permissibility of adjusting doors whose attachment to the kli has become tenuous. Okay.
Yeah.
I just got unplugged.
No,
it's not fine.
Now, by the way, the reason it says that some consider it boina, right? But generally, it's magba patish because generally speaking, boina generally applies to things that when you are the ground or that are alternatively attached to the ground. Attached to the ground. So if you make an improvement to the ground, or you make an improvement to a structure connected to the ground, it's baina, but a kli is not connected to the ground. It's not mechor b'lekarka, and that's why it's everybody agrees that makbeh patish, but not everybody agrees that it's necessarily baina. Okay, mechaber.
Shida teva, a chest, umigdal, great. Shida, a chest, teva, crate, umigdal, or a closet, shepischehen minatzad, whose doors were on the side, its opening was on the side. V'yesh lahem shnei tzirim, and there are two hinges, echel l'mayla v'echel l'mata, one above, one below. Im yatsa hatachlin kulei u'mkleimen. If the lower hinge is completely dislodged from its place, also the hafzirei shema yiska. It's forbidden to put it back into place because you might wedge it in. So aval im yatzim if it's only partially dislodged, you can push it in until it's put back in its place. Because the top one still stayed in its place. So in the lower one, then it was easy to just put back in. No touching. Okay, just look. When the top one pops out, you're not allowed to push it in, even just to push. Not allowed to put it back, even just to push it in to put it back into its place. That was in Mechash. Okay, Mishna Berura.
Okay, so first before so you'll I guess what I think we'll do is are we gonna do? We'll do the same thing.
You do.
I'll do Mishna Berura. You'll keep track of the notes. So first of all, let's look at the notes on the introduction because I think they're very. It's good stuff because it talks about what is baina and what is makbeh patish and what are the guidelines for each one, and it explains why some. Well, I think it explains why some Rishonim hold it's baina and why generally it's considered makbeh patish and not baina. Note A.
Hey, you want me to read that?
Yeah.
And then you'll do the
You'll do
Mishna.
notes. Yeah.
So literally striking with a hammer, as Taisus says, and the Taisus and the Ran explain, this refers to striking an object with a hammer specifically, or just at the final stage in the manufacturing process, such as striking a kli with a hammer in order to even out any dents or crookedness, or striking a stone in a wall in order to line it up with the other stones. See in Rashi for a slightly different explanation. More broadly, the malacha includes any act that a craftsman or professional finds necessary to complete his work. In regards to a kli, this might include the final stage of making it functional, improving its functionality, or even enhancing its aesthetic beauty. Mishnah Berura follows this approach to defining the malacha of makabapatish, an alternative approach to see the Rambam. Now, repairing a broken kli is also forbidden by Deiraisa on this malacha if one is essentially recompleting its manufacture. This would apply when, one, the kli is non-functional, and two, the repair requires a measure of skill. Reinstalling the doors of a kli by firmly attaching them is a skillful act of repair and therefore a biblical level violation of makabapatish. Putting this thing back together, which is,
right. So that's actually a very good piece of information that when he's talking about here, usher, etc., he actually means from Midoraisa. This is a Torah. This is a Torah prohibition, not a rabbinical prohibition. When he's talking about a door, meaning if a door is, in the case at least, that it's fully out. Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. Like moving to the table because the couch is just too appealing for kids to kind of climb all over me to watch over my shoulder and pull out plugs and things.
Well, they want to, they want to learn Shulchan Aruch too.
They want to join.
They're just still figuring out the details of how to do that effectively. So
they just don't. They're figuring out how to do it without totally disrupting the whole thing. Now that's a trick. How do you listen and how do you take part in something without ruining it? It's very skill to learn and something necessary for all of us. Some of us are still learning that skill, even as adults. So,
I'm getting there.
One step at a time, one step at a time.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
Okay. So now
the question was, it's matbepatish, and he mentioned that it's not baina.
Right. According to some Rishonim, it is baina.
Right, but according to some, it is baina.
Oh.
So this, I think this is the note, I think, that explains that thing of why some consider it baina.
Yeah.
And some
malacha baina applies to creating. So what's baina? It's creating or modifying structures that are attached to the ground. We said in Shulchan, as well as to large kalim with a capacity of at least 40 sa'ah. Because repairing a kli, that's not baina. But if it's so big that it can have at least 40 sa'ah, which remember, that's the amount that a minimum for a mikvah. So that's a large amount. And such examples would be, you have closets that are that big, even bookcases or refrigerators, right? So fixing such things, completing such a thing would be actually boina, not just makabapatish. So the Gemara creates a dispute as to whether it applies to smaller kalim, which are detached from the ground, which again parallels mikvah in the fact that it's not a mikvah if it's attached to the ground. If it's detached, it has to be mechubad lakarka. It has to be attached to the ground. So you see a lot of these parameters of what is a structure versus a kli and stuff. These definitions exist across the board. Like they're equal. Some things change in halacha, but a lot of things are the same.
Right.
Like
so basically, everybody agrees if it's attached to the ground, it's bain. Then then you're entering an issue of baina. Now, which is interesting. My question, maybe he'll address this, is at that point. Does the I'm assuming that when it becomes baina, the makabapatish part leaves, or no?
Right. Or is it two malachas?
Or are you doing both?
Two karbanis.
I don't know. But in either case, everybody agrees that when it's attached to the ground, you have a problem of baina. Yeah. And everybody agrees that if it's over 40 saw, even detached, it's considered like it's attached. But the question is when it's under 40 saw and it's not attached. So then,
right now we're talking about when it's smaller, so it's under 40 saw, and which are detached from the ground. So we rule it's not. But the Rishonim debate the extent. How far? What do we mean it's not? How far does this go? So Rashi and a few others like the Rashba maintain that kalim are categorically excluded from lochal baina. They're never baina. It's a keli. It's not a structure. As mentioned in the appendix, the 39 malachas are derived from the labors necessary to construct the Mishkan. Rashi in his commentary to the Mishna in Shabbos implies that this includes Only what was done in order to create the Mishkan itself, not its vessels. We're talking about it was what was done to create the structure of said Mishkan, not the things inside it. Thus, the Malacha does not apply to Caleb. But a number of Rishonim maintain that assembling a kli from scratch or reassembling the kli that fell apart to the point that skill is necessary in order to reassemble it is also a violation of Bainah. Moshe Feinstein suggests an explanation for this approach based on the principle that an act of construction must be significant in order for it to qualify under Bainah. Taking a previously mobile object and attaching it to a ground structure or to a large kli, thus effectively immobilizing that object, is deemed a significant act, whereas attaching an object to an existing kli, which is itself mobile, is not. Creating a kli from scratch, however, is a highly significant act and thus a form of Bainah. And then the third opinion, so it didn't say who these other Rishonim were on Shabbos Kuf Beis. But now, so we have Rashi, some other unnamed Rishonim, and then Taisvis and some more Rishonim that hold that attaching a kli with skill or force, even if the skill or force is not actually required for the purpose of the attachment, is included in the malacha. So the most machmir. Because the second opinion said if it's skill or force, but it's needed skill or force, like it's totally busted. Taisvis says no, even if it's not required. But if you needed skill or you had to force it on there, didn't easily slide in, then that's still boina. So again, back to the question of playing with Legos on Shabbos. Yeah, is force the fact that when you push it together, they have to click on. There's a whole thing actually that people say that adults should not be playing with Legos because it could be considered boina. And I remember once a Rav made the distinction of what at what point, what's the cutoff when the child stops taking them apart immediately. If the child leaves it construction the way it is to play with as a toy, that's the point that they should stop. They shouldn't be playing with Legos.
One of the requirements for Baina, like we had from before, is that it's a thing of permanence.
What's the word you're using? Boina. I thought it was muksa. What's the word you're using?
Boina, building.
Muksa is a totally other concept.
And muksa is actually only a midrabanon.
Yeah, muksa is the concept of don't touch it. That's what muksa is. Don't touch. But then there are the things that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos.
Technically, muktzah isn't even touching it. It's really don't move it.
Don't move it.
But if it's a smaller item and you touch it, you're going to move it. Right. So
what's the other word? What's the other word?
But boina is one of the 39 melachos, one of the 39 actions, the things that you do. Boina, like sheyabane beis hamikdash, to construct.
Construction, building something.
There are 39 things you're not allowed to do. On Shabbos, when it comes to what we're not allowed to do, there's two main categories. The things we're not allowed to do, malacha, and then there's muktzah, the things we're not allowed to move. Now, the things of muktzah is a rabbinic decree to protect us from accidentally end up doing a malacha. It's a fence that the rabbis put up. Don't move this thing because you might come to doing a malacha.
Like
the
for
malacha,
example, don't move a hammer because you might come to do boina.
To do construction.
Right.
Or malacha Shabbos. Someone does a malacha on Shabbos, they could be chayiv misa. They could get the death penalty. So we're very careful not to mess with that. Yeah,
these things where it becomes very relevant is, for example, there are certain cases where there is more lenience to tell a non-Jew to do something, right? In the case that it's a rabbinical law, whereas in the case that it's a Torah law, it could be more stringent. So that's where there would be a difference between having a non-Jew move the hammer or having him build something. There are different levels of stringencies attached to those, being that one is a Torah prohibition and one is a rabbinical prohibition, etc.
How do I properly say the word?
Boina.
Boina.
Boina. Yeah, it's the one.
Boina. Boina. Boina.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Try to remember. Yeah, similar to that. We're building the Beis Hamikdash.
Gotcha.
Okay, and it came from building the Mishkan, the original, the OG Beis Hamikdash, or the precursor to the Beis Hamikdash.
So that was
the three opinions. Now, regarding attaching doors to kalim, so we said, we're attaching a door to a closet or to some sort of cabinet in Aron Kodesh. The first view holds that there's only a violation of Makeh B'Patish. You're only completing the final hammer below. You're only completing the project. So the actual malacha boina, actual construction, does not apply to kalim. So it's just the completion of a project that violation, not the violation of actually building something, because it doesn't apply to a vessel, a movable, item. The second and third views, however, would certainly hold that one is liable for boina. No, you are doing construction, since attaching the doors requires skill. Got some skills to put a door on. There is room for discussion as to whether wedging the door is a violation of Makabeh Patish in addition to boina. So, like Mendel brought up, is it an addition or does it replace it? Is it one or the other, or is it just pile on? Some Achrenim maintain that the malacha Makabeh Patish applies only to acts that cannot be classified under any other malacha, while other Achrenim disagree with this view. For example, for discussion, see Binyan Shabbos. So, for further discussion, malacha boina as applies to kalim, we'll see later.
All right. Well, so there's our answer on that. It's machlokes. It's machlokes. Some hold that if it's boina, it's not. And it's another good piece of information because he's establishing that this debate is over is not just in this case. It's over the general rule. Is when it's makbeh patish, does it automatically become not baina? In other words, is it one or the other, or can it be baina and makbeh patish? So fine, that's not a discussion for today, but it's good to know that discussion exists.
It's an opinion.
Okay, C, I think,
yeah. So now C, that was going on the fact. So the Shulchan Aruch adds. Basically, rabbinic law forbids reinstalling the door without wedging it in. Okay, for the future, I'll just do the notes maybe as we go. So, due to concern that one might wedge it in. So the rabbi said, don't put the door back on, because even though you're not wedging it in, even though you could pop it in without wedging it in, but we're afraid you might wedge it in, then that's not allowed. So in the introduction to Sif 6,
that's the next one. The next Sif.
Yeah, the next Sif. We will present 3 levels of attachment regarding to reassembling a kli. Aleph, wedging, which is forbidden by biblical law. Wedging it in there. Bays, connecting, including a semi-loose attachment, which is usually forbidden by rabbinic law. I think we're saying usually because usually rabbinic, sometimes it can actually still be deraisa, biblical law. 3, a loose attachment, which see footnotes in the introduction there for the definition of these levels. Now, the Ramah in passage 6 will teach that rabbinic law forbids even loose reattachment of parts that are typically wedged together. If, however, the parts are typically attached loosely, then one may reattach them in this manner on Shabbos. Same principle would apply to the doors. If they're typically wedged into the kli, they may not even be attached loosely. If they're typically attached loosely, then one may do so on Shabbos. Mishna Berura in several places indicates the same. And there are some doors that just pop out very easily. So then I think, no big deal. That it can pop out, it can pop back in. Chazon Ish, however, maintains that reassembling kli in a loose manner is permitted under all circumstances. So again, those Sfardim having more fun.
Yeah. Okay, so now Mishna Berura.
No, we got one more. Sorry. So now that we said, our Sif focuses on the adjusting doors who to the kli that has become tenuous.
Yeah.
The logic behind the distinctions made by Shulchan Aruch will be explained in the footnote M below. Now, Mishna. Sorry.
Okay, so now Mishna Berura.
Let's
see where. Here.
156.
The Echad Lemata. Right. This is what is it? 37. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Is that where we're starting?
Lamed Zayin. Yep.
Okay. So he said that it has 2 hinges. One is at the top and one is the bottom. V'yesh chayr b'miftan shatzir nichnas l'seichei, and there's a hole in the bottom thing in the frame.
The lower frame.
Yeah, into which you put the here. Remember, we're not necessarily talking about the hinges that they're talking about in the Gemara. We're usually not like those things like that flip around. Like, all right, it's a peg that gets inserted and a peg that gets inserted. Nowadays there's hinges like that also on Kalim. Actually, I've seen that where you have like most often I've seen it on toys. right? Where you have like a door or something, like it has like a flippy door thing, and it goes in by you put, you put the peg in the peg.
But it's not just toys though. A lot of IKEA furniture, I feel like, like the cabinet. Sometimes it just kind of clicks in, clicks out.
Exactly.
For the cabinet doors, I'm saying on it. Yeah, it's just like a little pops in. It's a pressure. You push it to make it flat and then pops back in. Or like a toilet paper roll.
וכנגדו יש למעלה חיר אחד שהציר העליון הוא בשיח אחר. And on top there's another hole opposite it, right?
You mean a toilet?
The upper hinge, meaning so in the frame, right? You have the frame or whatever the thing is, right? And on the top of it there's one hole, and the bottom is another hole. And it's like just like we just said, you put the peg in one, and then you you push it in there, and it kind of
Well, it was saying like he was meant to say like a toilet paper roll holder. The holder.
Right. I meant the holder. The way that's what I meant.
I was wondering what you said. Toilet paper. Well, I didn't understand that. I got it now.
Is there a note on that?
Yeah. Sorry. So where is I don't see how to
E.
Where's E?
156. Are you on 156?
I'm just seeing F. Oh, sorry. That's 4F. Okay, I see where it is now. Okay. I don't know. It was confusing because that was okay. 5E. Okay. That is basically the edge of the door has wooden protrusions on the top and bottom. The hinges, the little thing sticks out, like we said, which are then inserted into corresponding holes in the opening.
Mishna Berura Lamed Ches. Shema Yiska, right? We said that
we're afraid you might wedge it in, even if it's not a wedging thing.
You might come to wedge it in, right? Yeah. So the chayzek, meaning with force, right? The saki no viseda is like with a knife or
Well, it's funny. They actually they translate it as pins and pegs.
Yeah, which is funny because it usually means like with knives and sticks, no?
Right, but then if you continue, I guess it makes more sense that
let's say me some, so it shouldn't come back out of there.
It's not going to pop back out of the hole.
Now
it's not referring to the tools.
Come out of there.
So as I'm saying, it's not referring to the tools you're using to get it in. It's talking about the thing that goes in is going to be like so.
He's using it to
make it be longer.
Right. He's using it, which is funny because see, I'm understanding it a different way. I'm understanding it differently than how he's understanding it here. I'm understanding that because then why call it besakin or we say this? I'm understanding that he's using it as a tool to
get it in there.
But in either case, the problem is the same. It's you're doing something to make it to make it stay in there permanently. That's the bottom line. That's
now it's interesting. So there's a note on that. It says, actually, so while the Mishnah Berura specifies that the hinge is held in place with pins and pegs, this is actually not the definition of wedging in all places. It all depends on the manner in which the part in question is firmly attached to the cleat. Let's see, Binyan Shabbos, which I think highlights what we just said. It's about, how is it in there? And that's the problem, is that if it's in there too firmly, then that's a boina, that's a construction. Right. You really you nailed it in there. You didn't it's not just loosely in there. It's properly nailed. It's properly,
Right. So being that it's permanent, that's why it's considered finished, because Maki Bepatish, similar to Baina, has the requirement that you're doing something, a lasting action.
I think another very practical example that comes up a lot is with people with glasses. If it breaks on Shabbos, if you could put it back on, it'll stay on, but it could also still easily pop back off. You could just pop it in, out, then that's fine. But if by you popping it back on, then it stays clipped.
Stay that way. You got a problem. Yeah.
You can't do that on Shabbos. Not only you can't do that, but then it's possible that the glasses.
Building a pair of glasses. Yeah.
Well, so that would be usher, but also the glasses might even become muktzah. Because are you really going to use them as monocles? So it could be a shaila. I'm not saying it's totally, but there is a shaila that could fall in it depending on circumstance. It depends. I think a lot of that would depend on what the guy uses it for. If they're just reading glasses, fine. But if it's farsighted for walking, then yeah, so yeah, it's very relevant.
And by the way, it's a ma'aseh shehaya.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
if you remember, my grandson knocked my glasses off my head last week, and I remember I didn't have. So now it turns out that ma'aseh shehaya was on Friday, not on Shabbos. So I already didn't have them on when Shabbos came in. It wasn't a matter. So I didn't have the issue of the muktzah. They were already in a sandwich bag by that point. But anyway,
right, but taka b'chol yom, or at least b'chol shavua.
Right, but it's not like a far-fetched.
Right, it's a regular. That's what to bring it up. Yeah.
Well, especially with me, you see, I always have my glasses on top of my head, and then I'll look, and then when I look up at the ceiling to space out, they'll fall off. You see, Anyway, va'afilo heichi sha'acheru be'emtza pesach hateva, jelei shayach lemigzura kol kach shema yiska. Now, even where the hole, it's not on the top and the bottom, but it's in the middle, right? It's just a hole in the middle, where you don't have that same issue of that you're going to wedge it there, because there's no two holes to wedge it between.
Right.
Afilu hachi asr. Even so, you're not allowed to do it. Because that there's a gzeida that if you allow in the middle one, and people once you allow in the middle one, they'll think you can do it on the sides also, and they'll do it, and so therefore we don't allow even the middle one. Afilu b'tzirim shalonu shehemi barzo. Even in our hinges, which they're not like we're saying, we're talking about those peg hinges. But even in our hinges, that they're made out of steel.
I think it's just iron.
Or iron.
Steel is whatchamacallit, from iron.
Yeah, iron.
Just any sort of metals, I guess.
Also, lahachsid dalsia kelim. You're also not allowed to return, meaning to refasten the hinges of a kalim of movable, right, of portable things,
right,
implements or whatever. Not implements. An implement is like something you use to do something to something else, right?
Right, but it's a non-structural piece of furniture.
Yeah.
So as a
so you also can't do it. Why? Because Rinon Shema Yira Hatzir ain't it Yafe, because maybe he'll see that it's that the hinge is not wedged in well. The Chabera say Bimas made him, and he will come to use nails or
attach
screws.
it.
Screws or nails to attach it, and now you have that's a real problem of makbeh padish. You're mamish taking an unusable thing and making it usable with your nails and with your screws. Which your nails and screws are probably mukta also. There's a problem,
right?
Of,
right. Well, what's interesting is you have a direct way that saying, because it just made me think the fact where it's mechubar le karka wall or whatever. Yeah, the difference between, let's say, a kitchen cabinet that's attached to the wall versus a standing cabinet. And sometimes people have, like in their kitchens even, they have just a standing shelf cabinet or a china cabinet.
Right.
I mean, it's bigger, so then maybe not that one, but maybe
a china cabinet, depending
that's probably 40 saw.
Depending on its size, could be 40 saw.
But we have these mini china cabinets. Right. Instead of having one big one, we have these three in the corners. Right.
Yeah. Or alternatively, like I have it's kind of like a china cabinet, but it's only this, like this. Well, you can.
It's a small one.
See, I had to move back for that. It's like
I would ask also,
and it goes on. I would wonder, of like there's like a big ledge that we have by the fireplace.
Exactly.
On the
so
side.
I was just going to ask that. My
and that's not 40 saw. That one for sure is not 40 saw.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of these china cabinets come in two parts. It's the top half, the glass part, and this bottom credenza, there's shelving.
So it probably
it
probably depends if they're connected to each other or they're sitting on each other.
So is that the nafkamina? If there's the little latch in the back with the screws, if that's screwed in, but if it's unscrewed, does that mean they don't connect? They don't measure together? Or is it no, because it's on top of each other, the way it's resting, and it's on the ground.
But they are individually portable.
I understand they're individually portable.
Yeah.
But the fact is, one is on top of the other, where it's one piece of furniture that's from the ground into the air, it's one thing. What I'm saying is, if you stack cabinets, meaning even if I stack a bunch of milk cartons, which I've seen milk cartons stacked sideways to be shelving, it doesn't matter. The fact is, one piece of furniture because it's all one pile. But I don't know. I wonder how it. I'm not sure. I don't know where that left. It's even talk about it. It's
a good question. We'll have to write what do you call it on that?
Yeah. Is it added to the Sefer?
I mean, seeing as we have just such abundant time, like let's do it.
We have so many. That's what the stenographer is for. Stenographer, make sure you note that down for later research of the research team right here for us. Okay. So there are a couple interesting notes. I just wanted to. Yeah. So for those that are following along in the book and the it was edition of Mishna Berura, footnote G. It's a continuation of what we said before. In regards to Makabeh Patish, again, the Mishna Berura does not mention here that some maintain the wedging that the door is a violation of Baina. He doesn't get into, I think, the Machlekes so much. But he does mention this view back in Shin Ches, that it would be considered Baina, not just Makabeh Patish. So now the Shalmei Yohinason suggests that since in our case the door is still somewhat attached to the Kli, making the repair does not require skill, so then he can't be classified as Baina. When we said you got to have skills. Right. So only Makabeh Patish. So it's just interesting. I see the Shulchan Aruch who does mention Baina in our context.
Oh, interesting.
Seems to be here's a nafkamina between where the Mishnah Berura seems to say it's not because it doesn't take skill, it's not Baina. The Alter Rebbe says no. I guess it's enough skill, even though it's not major skill or whatever. But we'll see by the Alter Rebbe what his reasoning is.
We'll see when we get there. Yeah.
But it seems the Alter Rebbe seems to say it is. Now, H. So, with regards to the opening of the crate, right, where the hole is in the middle, instead of top bottom, it's dead center, like off the side. So the Mishnah Berura describes this case where the Kli has just one hole in the middle of the wall of the opening, and the door has intrusion, which then inserted into that hole. So the Shara team, Mishnah Berura, there cites some Achronim who state that if so, there are two holes in the center of the top and bottom of the opening, it would be exactly the same. So the two holes are on the side of the top and bottom. Further cites Ira. However, he maintains that a hole in the middle of the crate actually refers to two holes in the center of the top and bottom of the opening.
Interesting. So when he's saying in the center, when he's saying the center, is it talking about there's one hole, or does it just mean, or does it mean there's a top and bottom? Only it's not on the edge.
Right, it's off the side instead of it's going that way instead of which is and then I indicate Mishnah Berura indicates it to some degree. So we said in regards to you might because we have the decree where we're worried. You might wedge it in. It's not applicable if it's sticking out the side. Mishna Berura is indicating that there's some degree of concern you might still wedge it in. But this possibility is just so remote to justify having such a gzeira. It's putting the door back into place without pegs and pins. Right? Just simply popping it back in. It's really that it's not that big of a concern. So this accords with the suggestion of Berura Halacha that while firm attachment to the door was uncommon, it's nevertheless possible. The suggestion to explain the Rajma states that even when the hole is in the middle, one may not wedge the door in. Earlier in the paragraph, Berura Halacha said to the Ran the effect that firm attachment to the door was actually impossible. And note, the Shulchan Aruch explains, once again, the Alter Rebbe explains it differently. The Alter Rebbe says when the hole is in the middle, the door is meant to be removed and put back on a constant basis. It's just how it is. It's supposed to pop in and out. So wedging it in would actually be detrimental to its function. You're gonna ruin it.
Messing it up. Yeah.
Each time you're wedging it, you're making the hole wider. It's not going to be able to pop in and out. It's going to get too loose eventually. And Mishnah Berura then goes on to teach that even though there is little concern to firmly wedging in the door when the hole is in the middle of the opening, it's nevertheless usher to reinsert.
I moved the game.
So I don't know. I like it'll be interesting to see. It seems what they're saying is the Alter Rebbe seems it's not necessarily also. The Bishop Berura seems again seems to be but we'll see when we get to the Alter Rebbe exactly. The Alter Rebbe's final conclusion is the Alter Rebbe definitely seems to say that we're not worried about wedging because wedging would ruin it.
One hole means it's made to pop it and pull it out, right. Pop it and pull
one
it out.
Side hole. One side hole. It's made to pop in and out, and so you're not concerned about wedging because that would just ruin it.
Right.
Okay, and then another. So we said again the middle as an extension of when it is on the side. So meaning we're permitted to loosely insert the door even when the hole's in the middle of the opening. There's concern you might wedge it in the door whose hinges are on its side. That's the Mishna Berura's that direction. Yeah. Now, the hinges. So we said are made of iron.
Our hinges that are iron hinges rather than the
so we're talking about
protrusions.
Like modern day hinges where you have metal pegs that then go to the opening, which are then inserted into metal cylinders that are attached to the door. Our modern day, pretty much our modern day hinges. See the Aruch Shulchan. There's no concern for firm wedging of the pegs into the cylinders since they're somewhat wider than the pegs, and there's simply no way to make it tight.
Right. In our hinges, it's this pin. It's a pin that goes in the thing, but it's not a tight. It's being that it's held in a different using a different mechanism. It's not gonna fall off. It's not like a peg that has to be wedged in there. It's fine if it's
you don't screw it in.
Like you need it to be loose or it won't swing. So it has to have a certain amount of looseness.
Well, the point is, even when you drop the peg in, you're not screwing it in. You're not tightening it. It just drops into place. That's it.
Yeah.
And then,
but by the peg, you're meant to drop it in, but there's a concern that you might come to wedge it in to keep
wedge it. No, but I'm saying so here.
Right, in our hinges, you're saying that concern doesn't exist. So what are you going to wedge?
You're not concerned it's going to wedge because there's no wedging.
There's no point to wedge it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then finally, so we finished off that you're worried that you might if it's not wedged properly, if it's too loose, the guy might just take some nails, knock it in. So meaning he might nail the peg to the wall of the cleat so that it'll remain in place. Because you're not going to nail the actual hinge because then it won't swing up. No, but you might nail the hinge a little bit so it stays steady. Going to fall off the So Sharatzian says this follows the Magen Avraham and other Achreinim, which again good because we like to hear what the Magen Avraham has to say.
Yeah, to know that. It's good because then when we get to the Magen Avraham, we have a little bit of a background in
it'll be familiar, it'll be easier to understand.
Yeah.
Simachs Shekel citation of Taisus Shabbos. This Rabbi Machs Shekel says this issue actually depends on a dispute in the Shulchan Aruch Shin Yadalit as to whether one may remove the hinge from the Kli on Shabbos. The view that forbids it holds that it is a violation of Malachim Seiser, demolishing, breaking up. So it follows then that attaching it to the Kli would be a biblical level violation of the counterpart Malacha of Baina. Then Baina on one side, there's construction and destruction. Thus, we understand the Chazal would forbid sliding the door onto the pegs due to concern one might violate the Isser by attaching the peg to the Kli. The dissenting view, however, maintains that removing the hinge is not considered Seiser since the Kli itself is not actually being fractured. Thus, there's no counterpart prohibition of Baina in attaching the hinge to the Kli. Although the Magen Avraham states that even this view would forbid nailing the hinge to the Kli due to Kanal Tikkun Mana, the Shabbos understands this to be only a rabbinic prohibition. Thus, there is no reason to forbid putting the door onto its hinge due to concern. One might nail the hinge to the Kli, since even that would only violate rabbinic law.
Right. So you're not going to do a Gzeira on a Gzeira. You're not going to do there's already a rabbinical enactment, even though in some cases there are actually it's not so much that there's an in some cases there's an enactment on the enactment. And then, and very often in those cases, there's two explanations for it. And there's one side that says, in this case, they were so worried about it that they did enact an enactment on an enactment. And then others will say, no, it's all part of the same one enactment, right?
Right. I guess the question is it a shvus the shvus, or is it no? We just moved the original shvus to be a much broader,
includes
much farther.
Right. It's in the box of the original shvus. This is the original enactment included this.
Do I have two fences, or did I just move the fence further?
Right, is it a bigger fence? But in either case, that is those cases are specifically when there is such a rabbinical enactment. It's not something that we just add things onto. In other words, if generally speaking, if there's already a rabbinical enactment, right, to keep you away from the Torah prohibition, you don't add on more to that unless it's one of those cases that specifically, yes, there was the rabbinical the additional rabbinical enactment that included that. So, so that's why he's saying here that even according to that opinion, it's not. You have to wait. You don't need to do an extra thing to keep you away from with the hinge, because it's even that would only be a abundance. You don't need to make additional offenses. So it must be noted. I think that however, continues.
But it must be noted, however, that Mishnah Berura and Sharet Zion asserts that nailed the wall, they're nice of them into all opinions under Makar Patish. So it's not just worried about. In this case, we're talking about if what you're doing is nailing it to the wall. If you're doing it, if you're nailing it to the wall, the kli, like we had explained, this is probably the case. So then yeah, it's a bigger issue. It's very nice.
Yeah. Mishna Berura 39. So we were all. So what we have been talking about is
just a quick
bottom.
Question.
Yeah.
Should I jump in as we do the Mishnah with the notes, or should I wait? What do you think? I feel like.
I think we can do the whole. I mean, like if it's a particularly long, I think we can do the Mishnah Berura, so we get his whole idea,
and
first,
then go back,
and then go back into I think that makes sense. So everything we've been talking about before is with the bottom hinge coming out, right? The bottom peg came out. What if it was the top peg that came out? But if the upper one came out, right? That through this it falls out entirely.
How are you?
So then, even
Mendel,
wedging it in, even pushing it back in place. I'm not talking about wedging in the peg, but even pushing it back into place is forbidden, just like it would be to reinstall it. Notes, and just remind you that note M we referred to before in the introduction. So this is the note M that he was talking about.
Yeah, right. We said later in note M.
Note M, yeah. Well, this is note M.
Very Israeli. M. Okay, but to explain, since the door is on the side of the kli, it's supported primarily by the upper hinge. If the door were on top of the kli, it would be supported equally by both hinges. Thus, in the early case of the Shulchan Aruch, where the lower hinge slipped out of the hole, the permissibility of readjusting the door depends on whether it slipped out partially or fully. If it slipped out partially, the door is quite secure, and reinserting the lower hinge is simple. So there's no pressing need to wedge it in. If, however, it slipped out entirely, the door is attached rather tenuously, and one would want to wedge it in so it doesn't slip out again. See, I don't want it popping out of them. Some of those cabinets, that we have in our house, the island, the door's always popping off. It's very annoying. In the case of the upper hinge, however, the door is not secure at all. Even if it slipped out only partially, it is therefore forbidden to reinsert it, as the Shulchan Aruch says. So now, the Sharet Zion, that was all from the Shulchan Aruch, from Welton. The Sharet Zion says wedging the upper hinge into place is certainly a deiraisa. Question of whether reinserting the upper hinge without wedging it in, you can pop it in without wedging it in there, is forbidden by deiraisa. The Rabbanan, that's a machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos. Remember, Tosfos said it was more machmir. Yeah, it doesn't have to be with skill. It doesn't have to be with, happening is a problem. So the Mishnah there states that it's also to do so even in the Beis HaMikdash. Rashi holds that if this were merely rabbinic prohibition, it would have been allowed. Beis HaMikdash, based on the rule of Ein Shabbos HaMikdash, there's no rabbinic Shabbos prohibition in effect in the Beis HaMikdash. Why? Why? Because you have like the Sanhedrin there or whatever. So they They wouldn't have come to make a mistake, or what's the?
I think it's more so that because well, first of all, you do have the Sanhedrin there, and B, bichlal, the exactness with which the Avedis Beis
precision of service,
right, and how they're trained in it, that they're not going to do it wrong, and you're doing karbanis, you're very careful on all the other things you're doing there. And also because we're talking about the Avedis Beis Hamikdash, you're not going to do an enactment that limits,
prevents holy service,
and prevents the service in the Beis Hamikdash.
So that's from the other side. You're saying not because we're not afraid someone might do it, but quite the contrary. No, we don't want to limit the ability for someone to serve God
because this is service the Beis Hamikdash. At home, you're worried somebody won't, and there's an additional thing like you said before. At home, you're worried somebody won't know. What's it called?
Right.
Here, it's like this. It's not you don't have.
A, you have on hand,
and B, you don't want to cramp the style of the Beis Hamikdash.
Don't cramp their style, right?
Yeah.
So two different sides. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Please note there's no source for that. It's just taken from what I've seen in various places. I don't remember where they are. If you want to know the exact reasons and whatever, look it up.
Right. That's an interesting idea. Okay. Excuse me. So now he therefore asserts. So the Sharatzin asserts that it must be also deiraisa. Wouldn't be that Rabbanan.
Yeah.
So now Taisvis proves, however, that some rabbinic Shabbos prohibitions do remain effective in the Beis Hamikdash, and reinstalling the upper hinge is one of them, due to concern that one might wedge it in. So now I see the Rabbi, who states that inserting the upper hinge is forbidden due to concern that one might wedge it in, thus agreeing with Taisvis. So Rabbi actually backs up. Right.
So again, we see this is a very interesting concept. Because this is a general rule. There is a general rule of there's no Shavuos in the Mikdash. But interestingly, and this is something that's new to me, is that there are some Shavuos in the Beis Hamikdash. In general, ain't Shavuos Mikdash. But at least according to the Rambam and Tosfos, in the Beis Hamikdash, there are certain
there are some
things that are,
including seemingly this one.
All right, and this is one of them.
This is one of them. It's very shaykh that I don't know that. Yes, Taisvis is the only one who holds that there's rabbinic Shabbos provisions. Maybe others agree that there's some that there's a mikdash. They just don't agree that this is one.
Right, they would seemingly not agree that this was one of them because
Taisvis is saying that
obviously they don't. Obviously, they at the very least wouldn't agree this is one of them.
Right.
Being that they use that as the proof.
Okay. As Rashi clearly doesn't, but Taisvis does. Okay. So now Rashi there states reinserting the upper hinges deiraisa under boina. Because Rashi's approach to that Talmudic passage that discusses the issue over in Erevin is that the view that forbids reinserting the upper hinge holds that Malach of Baina applies, because that's all according to the one who does hold that small kalim still are Baina.
Right.
Still Baina. It doesn't have to be a structure. It could apply even to small kalim. According to that view, reinserting the hinge even without wedging it in is indeed a biblical violation of construction. Just as loosely attaching a door to a structure that is attached to the ground is a violation of Baina. So too, that's as you see in Prim Gadim, the Chazanish, Ishal Brav, Martzia, Das Taira. So a lot of people hold. As stated,
right now, interesting. What Rashi is basically saying is it seems anyways from what he's saying here. Rashi agrees that thing, wedging the upper one, it was indeed prohibited in the Beis Hamikdash. But Rashi holds it's not because it was a prohibited Shavuos, but because because he holds it's a deiraisa, and that's why it was prohibited in the Beis Hamikdash, right? Where Tosfos is holding that no, this is one of the Shavuos, and this is one of the rabbinical ones that's prohibited. Rashi says no, true it's prohibited, but that's because it's a technical prohibition, not a rabbinical one. Yeah.
Nice. So
as stated in footnote B, however.
Yeah. So as stated, however, we rule that Baina does not apply to Kalim. unless the attachment is firm. That's how we roll. We end up going the other way. We don't say that. Similarly, the malacha of makbeh patish would apply only if the attachment is firm. So there's no baina, there's no makbeh patish if it's not, if it's not firm. So it's therefore unclear. Why is the Mishnah Berura here imply that were we to hold like Rashi, he would say that lemaisa inserting the hinge even without wedging it is usher deiraisa, when we don't go that way.
Right.
It's not firm. So what's even the thing? So yeah, it ends off. Oh, I like it. It's very Jewish. Ends off with a question.
Right. Okay. So I guess I'll do the introduction to 6, and then you'll do the notes on the introduction to 6.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Introduction to Seif Vav. The coming Seif is dedicated to the subject of reassembling kelim that are made of detachable parts. Halacha delineates 3 levels of attachment. Tekiah, wedging. This is forbidden by biblical law under the melacha of matbeh patish, or alternatively baina, based on how we discussed before in what cases it would be matbeh patish and in which cases it would be baina, as well as the possibility that according to some opinions there's a possibility that the same thing could be both melachas at once. So that's the wedging. Then there is hiduk, connecting. So this is generally forbidden by rabbinic law due to concern that one might come to wedge the parts, because wedging, we just said, the first one, wedging, is a biblical prohibition. Connecting is not. Connecting is that we're worried that you're going to come to do wedging.
Or inside the water.
And then there's a fully loose attachment. This is forbidden by rabbinical law when the parts of the kli are usually wedged together. So if they're not usually wedged together, then it wouldn't be it wouldn't be the same issue of attaching something. If it's something that's generally loosely attached and you loosely attach it, it's not the same issue as something that's usually wedged and now you're loosely attached. So an Aruch will cite a dispute as to whether it is forbidden even when they are usually just connected. Otherwise, the parts may be loosely attached.
Okay, so now some notes. So first of all, we said they're made of detachable parts. We'll see that this passage is wide-ranging applicability to contemporary reality. So very halacha l'maaseh.
Right, because there's a lot of not only that perhaps today more so than any other time, because we simply have a lot of stuff. In other words, if you look at our average house and and you have toys and puppets and things, and what's it called? And we have so many different items, even versus
also so many things are not made solid anymore. So many things are made by putting it together. Whether it's glasses or furniture. No, I'm saying,
but like items. Toys, right? And toys, even if they come, even if toys come in a way, we still have plenty of time, don't worry. If toys come in a way that they're made fully, but they're even still a lot of times there's parts that can come off, go back in. It could be toys, it could be kitchenware, all kinds of things. But we simply have a lot more stuff made in a lot more different ways than used to be made. So
yeah. So now we had wedging, which is a very traumatic word for me. Wedgies. But I'll power through. So the parts are connected together such that they become a single unit and cannot be easily detached from one another, as the Alter Rebbe says. See also Aruch Shabbos. Okay. Next, you have hiduk, which is connecting. See other footnotes, objections to the Berura to our passage cites a machlokes as to whether wedging is defined simply as fastening the part securely or is using a measure of skill or force in order to attach the part. Like we said before, talking skill, or it's just a more secure fastening.
It's just that before it was a loose thing and now it's a securely attached thing. Or is it something that required you to push your skill either way? Yeah.
So you have this level of wedging, was mamish, like it's wedged together. Connecting, the stomach connects together. Okay, maybe it's like a piece of Lego, or maybe even less. Then that's the Rabbanan, because you might come to wedge it. And then there's roughly, it's attached, but it's loose. Which What? How did I? Oh, sorry, I skipped. Before roughly. I'm sorry. Yeah, before roughly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and before roughly and all that. So here the connecting. So the part. So here the part fits together neatly, but are easily detached.
Right.
So it's like it actually reminds me of some of these like puzzles. You ever see those? Where it's like, how do these two rings at the right angle? It slides right in, and then it's and then it's connected.
Or going back to the example that you cited before, the toilet paper roll.
Yeah. Well, push it in the hinge and then it pops out. But I'm saying even without some sort of like pushing or pressure, you have like puzzle pieces, these things that just kind of fit in right
well. But you can move them just easily.
Yeah. And pop right now. There's no wedging needed, there's no hammering needed, like it just slides right in. So as you see the Alter Aruch Shabbos states though that even if a small degree of effort is required to detach the part, that's what I'm saying. So like a piece of Lego, you have to yank it apart. It doesn't slide out smoothly. You actually have to pull.
Right. The question is, it requires force or skill. How much force or skill are we talking about here? But the
Aruch Shabbos said, even though it does take force, that's still only hiduk. It's not to key. It's not wedging. It's not a derais. That's still only hiduk.
Right.
So he holds Legos are fine. Mishnah Berura will teach that semi-loose attachment, meaning there's some sort of degree of wobbliness, that's mamit, even though there's wobbliness, still hiduk.
Right.
Still this category. And then the Mishnah Berura also says as to wedge the parts together, the Mishnah Berura notes here, the Mem Aleph says, based on the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam, so the Mishnah Berura notes that based on the Shulchan Aruch. So now the Rambam takes a different approach. He says connecting the parts is forbidden d'Rabbanan because it resembles wedging. So it just looks like it, like you said, like a Marizayim.
Do you come on earlier on Fridays?
Yeah, we start at 10:30 on Fridays.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I was wondering why he was so.
Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
We usually go till 11. You want to bring with Rabbi Darren? It's an opportunity. It's very hard to pass up.
I know, but we're busy for bringing right now with the Alter Rebbe and the Chavetz Chaim a little bit. So.
Okay, that's a good for bringing.